fellow booktubers, my name is Lauren. You're watching Dreams, Books, Courage, and today I'm going to be filming a Top 5 Wednesday video. I feel like I haven't done one of these in forever, even though I only missed 1 week. But I definitely do love doing these videos, and I think that this week's topic is very interesting because today we are going to be talking about favorite character tropes. And what a trope is kind of like a category that you can put characters into. Here's an actual definition of what a trope is. Devices and conventions that a writer can reasonably rely on as being present in the audience members' minds and expectations. So they're basically kind of like stereotypes that you can put characters into, and even if you're confused about what a trope is right now, you'll really get the idea once I start talking about my top 5, so let's go ahead and get into it. And the trope that goes in the 5th place spot is the wrong guy first. And what this really means is that the main character dates someone or falls in love with someone, only to find that there is actually someone better for them. And the one that I'm going to be using as an example for this one is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, because I'm sure, as most of you guys realize, Gale is kind of a character that Katniss always had around, and she kind of loved him throughout the entirety of her life, and so she thinks that eventually they will stay together. But obviously her life completely changes, and she ends up meeting Peeta, who is even better suited for her, even though she doesn't really realize that at first. There are examples of this trope all throughout literature, but I think that this is definitely a good one, especially since the wrong guy first trope usually happens whenever there is a love triangle taking place. So this trope can be frustrating, but I think that it is worthwhile. In the 4th place spot, we have the girl's best friend trope, and this is kind of like the previous one where the main character has this best friend that's always been around them, and in the way that I'm using it, that means that that friend has actually fallen in love with the main character. And for an example of this, I'm going to be using City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, Clary being the main character, of course, and Simon being the best friend and always being hopelessly in love with Clary. These type of situations don't always end in romance or in love triangles. Sometimes the best friend does realize that there's someone better out there for them, especially whenever the main character doesn't actually love them back. But Simon is just such a great best friend. And another example that we could use within City of Bones is also Alec, who at the beginning of the series is in love with Jace. And again, he realizes Jace will never love him like Alec loves him. But this is a great example of how girls or a guy's best friend doesn't necessarily have to end in romance, but it does end in a great friendship. In the 3rd place spot, we have one that is typically associated with John Green's novels, and that is the deconstructed manic pixie dream girl. And for this one, I'm going to be using an example from Paper Towns by John Green. A manic pixie dream girl is typically this amazing girl that is perfect in every single way. For this book, that is Margot Ross Spiegelman, but it is told from Quentin's perspective, and so he is viewing Margot as this completely perfect girl. And throughout this novel, you really realize that Margot has all of these faults, and that she's nowhere near perfect, and she doesn't even really know who she is. And so that's where the deconstructed part comes in. I don't really like manic pixie dream girls in general, but I do like how John Green deconstructs them from this idealistic view to actually be a normal person, and that is a big part of why I love John Green's book so much. In the 2nd place spot, we have a very well-known trope, and that is the brooding and cynical male lead that really has a good heart. And for that one, I'm going to be using The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Within this, we have the character of Warden, and he is very brooding and very cynical. And throughout this book especially, you only really see him as that, but throughout this book, you really realize that he really has a good heart. And I really cannot help but fall for characters like that in books. There are just so many of them that it would take forever to name all of them. But that is definitely one of my favorite character tropes, and the characters that usually fall into that trope usually become my book boyfriends. And now in the 1st place spot, we have my favorite character trope, and that is the kick butt and stubborn female lead. For this one, I feel like I have to use the example of Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, because as so many of you know, I love Selena Sardothian because she is so kick butt, and also because she is very stubborn. There are so many examples of this throughout literature, and I'm personally very glad that this kind of trope is prevalent nowadays, because usually the hero of the story is a male, but within these types of books it is very much female, and I think that literature definitely needed that, and Selena Sardothian is definitely a perfect example of it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I would love to know down below what your favorite or least favorite character tropes are. Tropes can definitely be quite annoying, but you can definitely find them in any work of literature, and sometimes they can make that work more interesting and better. So I think it's very interesting to kind of investigate what kind of characters you're reading about and what kind of character tropes that they fall under. I would love to have a discussion down below about character tropes, and now I'm gonna go get back to reading.